Got it?
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Diana, and I am here with my colleague Vanessa Salo and our guest today for Ukrainian Voices. And we're so thankful that Dimko Zhluktenko has joined us today. Dimko is the founder of Ukrainian charity Zerga's Paw, which is named for his beloved dog. And this charity raises money to purchase much needed high-tech equipment for the Ukrainian military. To help his country, Dimko has dedicated 1 year of his life solely to volunteer efforts, and he joins us today from Lviv. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Happy to be here and happy to report.
So to get started, we just wanted to learn about what life has been like for Ukrainians since Russia invaded last year. So would you mind, or officially invaded, would you mind talking about this official start of Russia's war with Ukraine and your experiences?
Sure. I think it's best to start with stating the fact that it all started in 2014. And when it all started, I was just a kid, a teenager, studying my physics classes or anything. And starting from there, I have realized that our neighbor isn't that peaceful, and they have been committing terrible atrocities in many of the occupied cities. And when I was growing up, I really felt an urge to do something about this because I have met many people from that region, from Donetsk, from Luhansk, and they are actually very decent people and cool, absolutely the same as me and you. So I've decided, yeah, I've learned a lot about them and from them. I decided that it's my duty to do something useful for my country in fighting Russian invasion. And suddenly, February 2022, Russia have launched a full-scale invasion on Ukraine, which was a very chaotic a few weeks. And there definitely was an enormous and general panic, given the scale of the invasion, starting from multiple directions in the night, and given that Russia is obviously much more superior to Ukraine in terms of military, in terms of the equipment that they have, in terms of the headcount, etc., etc., and in terms of economical potential. So there was a lot of panic overall, but it seemed like the whole country actually got together to do their best to fight the invasion, and there was a good spirit of unity, I would say, in the very first weeks, months. And I think that felt the most until Russians retreated from Kiev, or were pushed back from Kiev region, and we all got to uncover all of the terrible atrocities that they have committed in the region. And yeah, since then, I've decided to, given that I am young, smart, intelligent, and all of the fancy words that I'll be using to describe myself, economically active, loud, good speaking, etc., good kind of a leader. Given all of those facts, I've decided that I actually have the potential to do something good for my country in this kind of a crisis situation. So in the very beginning, for me, it was also very chaotic. We never thought of leaving the country together with my girlfriend, just because, as I said, we are literally young, economically active, smart, etc., etc. And if we would leave, then no one would actually stay in the country. So we were actually the people to stay, and so we did, and it was planned out. And we decided to do whatever we could. And on our side, we just got in touch with many of our military friends and said, hey, what do you need? And they gave us like an enormous big lists of the equipment, because in the very beginning it was literally everything that was needed. And we decided to spend some of our savings into equipping our friends, so they would have better chances of surviving the war. Initially, we thought of so our plan for spring 2022, just a bit of a personal story. The plan for spring 2022 was to open up a bike shop in Lviv. So I'm formerly an IT engineer, and had a very good and successful career in software engineering and in managing software engineering teams. Although I was always a passionate cyclist, so I've thought maybe I'll just open up a bike shop, and that would be a good thing for the city. Anyway, that didn't turn out well, because spring 2022, I spent all my time trying to equip my friends so they would be able to survive. So some of that money we've spent just equipping my friends and Ira's friends. And it turned out that I had kind of an anxiety in a way that um, I felt that the world doesn't know enough about what is happening in Ukraine. So I thought, all right, I do speak a decent English, I'm vocal, and I've decided to share my story on Twitter. So initially I just started sharing, all right, I'm just walking with my dog, there's air alert, alarm on, or anything. And then I shared how I helped Ukrainian refugees here, or temporarily displaced persons, how we call them here inside Ukraine. Here in Lviv, how we created other projects like getting the toys for the kids at the railway station, because there were way too many of kids arriving at the railway and they were so stressed out. And yeah, obviously I shared how I help my friends, what kind of the equipment that I buy them, how much did I spend, etc., just for the people to know the real situation and the real story. So that kind of a citizen kind of journalism. And eventually many people started asking me, hey, how can I help you help your friends? And for a few days I thought about that. How can I make this all happen? Because that's a kind of a decision that, can take you places, and I mean very different places. So I thought about that for a bit, but whatever, if I can do anything that can make the life of my friends, Ukrainian defenders, if I can make their life easier, then it's a good thing. So all right, I just shared my PayPal online and said, hey, if you want to donate for some of the equipment for my friends, you can freely do so. Here is the PayPal. And many people, surprisingly, many people did so, because they thought, and it was really like that, that I was really transparent with what I do, what I buy, and they were able to follow the whole story. And there was generally an enormous urge among just private donors, citizens of other countries, to help Ukraine. And this was one of the most direct ways to help Ukraine fight. If we are comparing this to organizations like Red Cross or anything like it, many people abroad were kind of skeptic about sending funds to Red Cross or to UN or whatever, just because they thought that many of those funds would get lost in the whole bureaucracy of a big corporation, because the Red Cross is like a country in itself, so with internal politics, etc., and budgeting and so on. So supporting the smaller initiatives started by ordinary Ukrainians as what they ended up with. And yeah, so now it has grown, I think, way too much. And since I think I started accepting first donations in like April 2022, And now we are in July 2023. So we are almost over 1,200,000 US dollars raised and a similar amount of funds spent. So basically starting from zero to hero, or whatever you would call where we are right now. And as it all started as a personal initiative, just me from my backyard, sending parcels, making pictures, that kind of stuff. It has grown into, I would say, a full-scale charity. So for us, an average month would be getting around 100,000 US dollars in donations and spending a similar amount a month. So I think this is a pretty much a scale of an, if we talk IT terms, this is a scale of an average startup, I would say, in terms of income and spendings. So yeah, I think what was really crucial in spinning the whole thing up is that first I'm just a regular guy. I'm no politician or anyone. I had like 500 followers on Twitter the day the full invasion broke out. I never planned to be in this NGO sector or anything. I don't do this charity fund thing because I like to, because this is what I would like my life to be. But instead, I do this because I have to, and I have all of my real life plan, economic ambitions, etc., etc. But none of this would be possible if Ukraine would cease to exist. So, if tomorrow Russia invades any more of Ukraine, and then it would be a really tough situation. And we already see that this is extremely, even like today, is an extremely tough situation. Even though it's an epic win for Ukraine that we exist, still we are economically very dependent. Militarily, we're extremely dependent on other countries. And if the allies' support will stop tomorrow, economically, Ukraine would be doomed, and we wouldn't be able to continue to fight against Russia. I think this is very obvious for anyone who knows a thing or two about economics. So I think I'm just contributing my bit towards Ukrainian victory, and this is the only thing that matters for me now. And initially, I gave myself kind of a promise when I started all that, like, all right, I quit my ID job and thought, all right, I'll do my best in 1 year of a time frame to help my country, and I'll see how big it gets. Maybe I'll fail, maybe I'll be freaking extremely successful, and I'll save the world. Let's see. So I've decided that I'll do all of my best efforts that I can, apply all my previous knowledge and all of my fancy ideas, all my creativity to help Ukraine win against Russia. So this is exactly what is happening now.
That's such a quick turnaround from the start of the full invasion to setting everything up for your charity.
Yeah. So exactly, that was from zero to hero, although I've missed the part where it was enormous blood and sweat kind of work that I have did to make this all happen, starting from one person, just sending parcels with my dog and driving around in my car to the post office or anything, or to the front lines to deliver, to whatever we have now with the nice office with people on payroll, with we even got a van recently. So this is all serious and a real deal. So I think how it all happened is really just blood and sweat that I've put in together with the team. I think that my IT background really helped in terms of first managing people, then organizing the IT infrastructure. So like on the website, So we have written a few of the apps for internal usage, and some of them are actually having some external usage as well. So on our charity fund page, so first we have the website. So the website, and it's cool. We are able to have new pages added quickly. We have this kind of whole direction of transparency, because I think that all of the charities should be transparent as hell. So because people trust you with their own money, and they're curious, where did you spend that money on? So on our side, we have like a breakdown of all of the donations. So each person can see their donation on like this the wall of glory or anything. Although the data is obviously anonymized, so we don't break any kind of GDPR or anything in other countries. Although in Ukraine it's not required. Still, we have the breakdown of each and every of our expense. It is on the website, so exactly on the transaction level. So you can see, like, if you go to the website now, you would be able to see the last expense that we did like a week ago or something, and for how much did we spend on that drone, or how much did that radio cost us, and to which unit it got. And obviously we wrote a few systems to accommodate all of that workflow. And I think system thinking and building the processes is something that I've taken out of my university, out of my all of the side projects, and all of my professional career projects that I've did. Yeah, so here it is.
Yeah, things like drone warfare have, I feel, been so critical for Ukraine. Has your background in IT kind of helped you to be able to understand better what weapons are needed?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Given that I am not only an IT guy, but I'm also a tech geek, so I like technology. And even though for most people things like Starlink started just popping up like I don't know, like a year ago or something, but I was I was aware of that way back then, you know. And the knowledge, the ideas that I have generated, suggested to the military, it all worked out in a big kind of a system. So I suggested them ideas. They thought, oh yeah, let's try this. This sounds like a good idea. Like with the flying the drone over some enemy forest, having your Starlink nearby, and having your portable power station to power the Starlink. So this all builds up in a big system of you being able to fly the drone and stream the footage to your commander. I think now it's a de facto standard, although in all of those fancy NATO countries and their armed forces, they don't really have this kind of a that kind of a level of the UAV. They mostly have those big fixed wings or big drones, you know, but not those cheap quadricopters that we have off the shelf for $2,000 here in Ukraine. So I think the creativity, the previous background that I'm well educated on how encrypted radios work, all of that stuff, that helped define the focus. And given that I have many friends in the military, I was able to confirm the need for that kind of equipment. And as I've set out this in the initial philosophy of the fund, is that we are focusing on things that are giving tactical advantage over the enemy forces. So things like Starlink or extra radio, or having an extra drone. This is something that Russian forces wouldn't have usually. So this is exactly where you have the tactical advantage over the enemy. So you'd be able to assault their trench, and you would have more information, more situational awareness, and obviously better chances of hitting your target, hitting your objective of the mission. So I think this my IT background and just being a tech geek and being surrounded by like-minded people, this have helped enormously. And given that we are doing this for almost 1.5 years now, we are holding a big expertise in what we do. And given that we have some focus, we are not spending our time learning about, hey, what kind of tourniquet is best or anything. Instead, we are freaking experts in doing Starlinks, portable power stations, and radios, and all of the small bits and pieces with the drones, etc., etc.
One thing that I've noticed, and I'm sure you have noticed too, about this war now is what a big role, I guess, technology is playing in the ability for Ukraine to connect with people outside of the country. I mean, just like we are connecting now directly, I'm how, I guess, I do feel the same way. And do you feel that the ability for Ukrainians to speak directly with the world instead of having to go through like media or other people speaking for you has really helped you in your efforts?
Absolutely, but it has always been like that. It's not like it changed since 2022. I am a Ukrainian that have been online since I was 5 years old, and now I'm sitting here in my office with 1 gigabyte of internet per second that I pay like $5 for it. So Ukraine is pretty advanced technologically, and I think obviously for what I do with the charity fund, with fundraising, with reporting from Ukraine, it has an enormous impact that we are living in literally a live streamed warfare, that I'm able to, if anything happens, if I'm like in Kharkiv or whatever else, and I know that there are missiles incoming, I'd be able to literally sit in my hotel room with a Zoom call with the Deutsche Welle reporters and be live on their TV or something. So, and that's what actually happened, maybe like a half a year ago or something. A fun situation though. Makes a tremendous impact that the world has changed since World War II. And now, as I said, we're living in a live stream war. And all of those Ukrainian fighters, you can find them on Twitter, you can find them on YouTube. They drop their GoPro footage online. And this is absolutely bonkers. The way they fight, the way they coordinate, I think this is something that would be studied for decades in all of the military academies across the world. Like the recent case that I had with the guys that we helped, they are inside the Da Vinci battalion, and their code name is Honor Company, and they literally on their YouTube they drop some crazy footage of the most intense combat in the trenches in like 15 minutes, or what we've seen with uh, 73rd Center of Special Operations in Ukraine, what they upload on their YouTube and their channels, etc. Absolutely, absolutely terrifying. Like this is a crazy footage, and that the fact that we are able to see that almost live, the same way with all of the reporting on freaking Russian atrocities, is that is something out of this world. And we as a society, as a global society, we just come to realize this. And I think for Ukraine, it's kind of beneficial because transparency is the key, and Ukraine actually has nothing to hide or anything. So anyone, all of those fancy UN special researchers, they can come here and report on whatever is happening with the Russian POVs. At the same time, Russia isn't transparent at all. So like the guy from the Wall Street Journal that I think his name is Ivan, that got captured by Russian FSB or something, and he's still detained, sitting in the cell somewhere in rural Russia. That is something that I think makes a big difference between the societies, the way how transparent they are. So there is no such thing as UN investigators, researchers in Mariupol. There is no such thing as UN investigators in Belgorod or anything. So I think this really helps Ukraine.
Well,
Yeah,
one thing.
the footage that you mentioned is like super graphic footage of what drones are able to do with trenches, with the Russian soldiers there. Do you think that there's any chance that in Russia that those kinds of videos are able to be seen by people and that it might
Yeah.
have any kind of effect on them?
Yeah, I think this is perfectly seen. So they are not like limited in terms of social media or anything. It's not like they are living in North Korea or something. They have all the access to internet. They can use VPN, and no one would punish you for watching a stupid TikTok with a drone bomb falling onto a Russian soldier. So they are absolutely free with. They are. It's not like they are lacking the information on what is happening in Ukraine. Like they perfectly know everything, and they are okay with that as a society. So I think that the fact that they are able to see those videos of other Russians being exterminated in that crazy trench warfare is giving them chills. At the same time, they would think, how can I be better so I'd be alive? How can I survive, and how I can kill the more Ukrainians as much as I can? So I think these are their thoughts. At the same time, I don't think that they question themselves like why we are fighting this war. I don't think that they question themselves saying, is there anything I can do to avoid the draft, or just drop my gun and go back, or turn around and try to kill my comrades or anything? So they don't really question this, because I think this might be cultural. But anyway, this is just a thought, and might sound controversial. But generally, I don't think that they are limited in the information that they are able to consume and digest. And I think that they perfectly know everything that is happening here in Ukraine, given the amount of graphic footage. And not only from how Russian fighters are being exterminated, but also how they are being captured, being kept in the captivity, and all of the interviews that are done with them in Russian. So all of the potential POVs would understand this.
Yeah, I've noticed that with all the technology we have now, it's a lot easier to get information about what's really happening in Ukraine. As librarians, we really love going straight to the source and not hearing things second or third hand, or having something explained to us by someone that's not from that country or part of that culture. So I think that having so many Ukrainians online, being able to have read or see firsthand accounts of what's really happening has helped people that are looking for that information hopefully know more about what is going on in Ukraine, rather than hearing that from like a third party, like a journalist or a foreign government trying to explain, which may not have the motivations to be completely honest about what is happening. And I think and I don't know if you agree that it's harder for maybe Russia to cover up some of the atrocities that they have committed, because it's not so much like s- they said it happened, they said it didn't. We can see footage, we can see it happening ourselves. Um, and I think that is really powerful, because I know even just back in 2014, without so many people on social media, or at least finding those connections, like I was hearing about what was happening from journalists who I don't think understood what was happening. So we weren't really, I think, able to know exactly what was going on and know how we could help.
Exactly. So I think here the situation is first much more of widely exposed one, just because the scale of the Russian invasion this time is 100 times bigger or something. And this not only covers two regions, but it covers all of Ukraine, and all of Ukraine suffers from the missiles attack or any random shit that flies into Ukraine and tries to destroy Ukrainian homes, etc., etc. And I think that generally this kind of pumped up this citizen journalism kind of thing. I did that personally just because of the anxiety that I had, like no one is listening, so let me just scream into the void, that kind of idea. But for me, then it kind of popped up into a much bigger thing. Now, I think what really happened this time is that Ukraine actually, as a country, was able to win the informational warfare against Russia, and Ukraine was able to deliver the message of what is really happening. And some things are obviously they get a lot of empathy from people from abroad, and these things are not based on hey, I say this and you say that and the truth is somewhere in between. No, this is made solely out of facts, and the facts that have been confirmed by multiple of war crime investigators, UN researchers in the first place, and yeah, authorities basically. Um, I think this is quite cool that Ukraine was able to win that informational kind of warfare, because Russia tried really hard to push their narrative of freaking Bucha was staged, there were no kids in Mariupol theater, all of those mass graves and Izum, all of that is fake. Even though I personally witnessed that in the first days when Izum was liberated, I came there with my military buddies because I was in the area, and we brought Starlings, generators, and this was so much in need at the time because there was absolutely no cellular or anything in there, and no electricity and no running water. And we brought all of that, just placed that in a freaking like a bank building or something, and in the 15 minutes we had a queue of 10 people just standing here, just, hey, can you help me out, I just wanted to call my relatives, say I'm alive. And in 30 minutes we had like a queue of 100 people wanting to do the same. They just wanted to call their family and say I'm alive, and Ukrainian army has entered the city, because they were so isolated. So whatever. What I'm saying is the Russian propaganda is very powerful, and we are able to see that still now. So many of those free thinkers that would say that, yeah, maybe Ukraine is Nazi, but at the same time, they would never come to Ukraine to just witness that yourself, like with normal people like me and my girlfriend or anyone. Like, no, not going to happen. I think what has failed Ukraine in 2014 is really this informational kind of bit. And the huge factor in this was that most of those events were covered by the reporters, and many of the international reporters were here in 2014 covering the rebellion or something, the act of separatism. Although all of those reporters, so in many of the newsletters or things like Wall Street Journal, things like that, they have their reporters for Eastern Europe or Russia and some more. And obviously they would be based in Moscow, and they would literally speak what Kremlin would say them to speak or allow them to speak. They would go to Donetsk when it becomes occupied. They would interview and give the airtime for those terrorists that captured, literally freaking armed robbers who captured the administrative buildings, etc. So I think that the fact that Ukraine was so weak at that time and wasn't able to stand up for itself, both militarily and economically and informationally, was a huge loss for Ukraine, but that was the only option, because if your country is literally at the edge of economical collapse, there is not much you can do, actually, if you don't have that much support, as an example, as we have right now. And so, yeah, Ukraine was kind of pushed into these kind of negotiations with whatever Russia, Belarus, and signing those Minsk agreements, and that became it. And the whole world just kind of swallowed what has happened with MH17. The whole world was silent what has happened with the Crimea, and they thought it was kind of a referendum or something. Yeah, I've seen many of those referendums happening in Ukraine, and it is literally against the law. And there is no such thing as a free referendum when you have Russian armed forces coming into the peninsula, and you'd be kind of voting under the gun or something. But still, I have seen like a article from NBC News reporter just recently, maybe like a few months ago, where the reporter, I think there was a team of 3 reporters. They went to Crimea through Russia to report on the general public opinion in Crimea regarding Ukraine, whether they would like for Ukraine to come here, to liberate them or anything. So I think these kind of articles, first, it violates Ukrainian law, and all of those reporters, they would be revoking their press cards and they would never be able to enter Ukraine. Second, they would get canceled online, as I did regarding them. And third, they are literally not capable of understanding that kind of a reason and consequence kind of a chain. If you deport and destroy and torture Ukrainians inside the peninsula, if you do the same to Crimean Tatars or Kremlin, then this is exactly the public opinion that you would get if you fill the peninsula with the Russian citizens from Chelyabinsk who would just come live by the sea because it's freaking cheap in here, because you have captured some free land. Then this is the public opinion that you would get. And obviously that's what they did with that NBC News article. So I think still Russian propaganda is very strong, although we are seeing phenomenal increase in citizen journalism, kind of. And there are a lot of public opinion leaders who are able to decode that Russian propaganda and decode why certain people like that guy that you have in the US, Tucker Carlson, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so why they say things in such way. So it's a blessing that we have people who are smart enough and are able to explain things. But it's pity that we have still so much of the Russian propaganda online.
Yeah, one parallel I think I would consider a parallel I was struck by, it was in 2014 when the passenger plane was shot down. There was definitely, at first, I think everyone was like, oh, it was Russia. Like we know that. And then you could see the propaganda working, and all of a sudden it was being reported, actually, we don't know. No one knows. How could we possibly know? We'll never know. And then I saw when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, everyone was like, no, yeah, that was Russia. Why did we allow that propaganda to infiltrate our news media? And it seemed to me, looking out from the outside, that when Russia destroyed the dam, the same thing started happening. Everyone seemed to be like, oh, it was Russia. And then they tried it. They tried to be like, oh, was it Ukraine? Maybe they did it to themselves. But from my perspective, I guess, of all the Ukrainians I follow and all the media that I am able to see, there are so many firsthand recordings. We had the Russian telegram saying that they blew it up. And even the United States military came out and said, no, our intelligence says it was Russia. So it seemed like they tried that again, but this time, fortunately, they were unsuccessful, at least in what I've seen of pushing and that narrative out into the world.
Well, yeah, somewhat unsuccessful, although they still received that just a little bit of сумнівы. Yeah, so people were kind of tentative, because usually people are really used to, we have the side of one party and the side of another party, and literally the truth is somewhere in between. People are more kind of used to this. It's not like people are used to this party is a pathological liar and they lie all the time. If they're literally said, we didn't do this, this means that it's they who do this. So people are not used to that, and I think that created that initial doubt in many people, and they thought, yeah, maybe that was Mother Nature or anything that made the dam collapse, or maybe it's Ukraine who anyhow raised the level of water so the dam structurally wouldn't be able to take this. Anyway, my grandpa is the guy who have worked on the construction site for that Kakhovka thingy, for that dam, and he have told me many of the stories how they built that thing, and this is one of, or was one of the most capable things of taking damage. Really, these are like meters of cement in those walls. So if I cannot believe that this is possible to be destroyed by like a artillery or something. So no way. And this is exactly what US military said. So they said that it was blown up from the inside. So that's the trick.
So moving forward, do you have any goals or any goals you haven't already achieved for yourself or your charity?
Yeah, actually, So I'm following pretty much a goal-oriented approach, as I would do in any kind of normal business or anything. And I think this is rather an advantage that we have. So for Q1 and Q2 of 2023, we have set some goals. Let me dig it up, because I do run regular presentations for the team where we discuss that. So as a goal, we had the financial goals. So we were aiming for 2 million till the end of Q2 2023. This was made up solely just inside my head, because in the very beginning, when I set up those goals in like October something, we got really a lot of traction for a few months, and I thought this would become kind of a trend, because we were getting much and much more of the media exposure. But still, it didn't work out like that. So now we're sitting at like 1 million 200 US dollars raised. So the goal was to ensure that all of those finances are properly accounted and are transparent right on the website in an interactive way. And for that, we have kind of created a roadmap, and we've built that, built a few systems, built a few processes, and now it works smoothly. So all of the expenses are getting reported. They would be displayed on the website. All of the donations are automatically fetched from PayPal, from bank accounts, from other sources where people can donate, etc., etc. So this is all automatically. We also had some goals on the socials, I have mentioned here, 10,000 followers on Twitter on Zyga's account. Now we are like at 8,000, I think, as of today. And I have set up also some goals for visitors on the website per month. So we were aiming for 25 unique visitors for the website per month. Now we're sitting at like 3,000, although we have made so this is all also not reached at all, just because we have tried many things, but it's really complicated to get traction, and there are a lot of competing funds. Although we have applied for many kind of grants for Google ads, etc., etc. But yeah, it's much more complicated if you're doing this for the military, because in most of the world, there is no such thing as fundraising for the military. Because obviously most people think that fundraising for the military means that you'd be able to buy things that kill people, and this is not good. Fundraising for humanitarian, from my experience of talking to other charities, is much easier and less complicated. So we had the goals of setting up or settling with 10 of units that we support constantly. This was achieved perfectly, no problem, and we have established a long-term relationship and partnership in some way. The goal was to get ourselves a place where we would stay, so like a hub of the team. So I am here right now, so this is completed, and this also serves as a hub for I think now we are sitting at like 5 full-time employees, including me and my girlfriend, not including the dog, and not including some of the part-time contractors like legal services, accountants, or the folks who do social media for us, etc., etc. I have also settled on decentralizing the process of sending parcels and generally making it easy to follow for every team member. So now it's not all dependent on me. And same goes with the social media. So now it's also not dependent on me most of the time, and I'm just a kind of a consultant for them, that kind of thing. Yeah, so we did those goals. Although there are more to come, and obviously this in this recent months, we are focusing solely on supporting the counteroffensive, and like the last months, what we did is, I think, 131,000 worth of high-tech equipment delivered to the front lines, which I think is pretty fantastic. We are spending as much as we can to procure and deliver at the best price for Ukrainian military, to do this in legal way. I think this is the biggest focus that we have, and obviously attracting more funds so we'd be able to help more, so to scale up our initiative. Although we don't have any plans to scale up the team or anything, just I don't think that it's worth it. And with the team that we have already, we are doing a fantastic job, and these are all amazing people. So a big shout out to them, because it's actually them who do a lot of heavy lifting. It's not just me, although I'm a kind of a public figure, so now, and I'm kind of a hype man most of the time, and I have better reach, and some of them are just less social than I am, but still they're very amazing.
Well, thank you so much. I think we are wrapping up our conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else you would like to end with, or that you would like to make sure our audience knows about?
Well, I think we didn't cover the dog. So the name of the charity, Dzyga Farm, and the whole thing, as I said, came up just as a personal initiative, and I was just about to give it a go, just a prototype, whether I would get any traction with fundraising, with spending funds, etc., etc. And in one of the parcels that I was sending, I would usually do that in our garden. I just kind of laid down things that I was about to send. I think it was like some uniform or something. And the dog was really goofing around, just running around, playing. And for some reason, her paw was wet, maybe that from the grass or anything, and she stepped on that uniform. So she left her paw print or footprint. So I thought this would be pretty hilarious to name a serious charity that would contribute to exterminating Russian invaders in the name of my dog, and more specifically in the name of my dog's paw. So Dzyga is the name of the dog, Dzyga's paw is the name of the charity fund. She literally left her paw on the thing, and that's how it all started with the name. And by the way, for non-Ukrainian listeners who don't know what Dzyga is, in Ukrainian, it means spinning top. Do you know what is that? Spinning top? Yeah. So spinning top. And when she was like a puppy, we contemplated what name to pick, because she was so active, so fun. And then we were just sitting on the couch, and she started chasing her tail. So that's how we figured out that she's a spinning top, and that's where the name comes from. And yeah, generally she has been a very good friend, actually, that has supported us mentally. And I think through the last 1.5 years, it would be much and much more harder for us to cope with the situation if it wasn't for her. She really is a good friend, and now a symbol of a charity fund. And just recently this weekend, my girlfriend with the dog, with Dzyga, they went for that NAFO summit in Vilnius, and obviously Dzyga was a star there because she was the only dog. That NAFO summit is actually the conference of people who call themselves cartoon brain damaged dogs. And yeah, so she was a star. Everyone wanted to take a picture with her, a selfie. She even managed to lick some people's faces, to name some, at least Jessica Berlin, that I had captured on the picture, which is pretty hilarious, you know. I think that having a good humor really contributes to well-being, and especially in all of those tough situations that life puts us in. So I would like to end with that stoic kind of advice to all of the listeners. Please be humorous and accept whatever life gives you, and try to do the best as you can in a given situation, and don't cry about it. Instead, just go and do something that would make your situation better.
Thank you so much, Dimko. And for those that want to donate to Dzyga's paw, we're going to have the link in the caption of this video, so you can go right there and donate to this wonderful charity. So thank you so much for joining us today, and may you and your family and all those you love remain safe. Thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you.